Last year, I released a video about building a charging station for all my gear. With the constant addition of new devices and chargers, keeping everything organized in one spot has become essential. Some of the devices and batteries don't come with wall mounts or easy mounting options, so this was a great opportunity to design my own solutions from scratch using 3D printing. I've been wanting to do this since getting my bamboo printer, but like most of my projects, finding time has been the biggest challenge. Let's start with the printed parts. First, I had to figure out how to mount everything to the pegboard. The wall control pegboard offers two mounting options, slide slots and standard round holes. I decided to use the round holes for simplicity and began designing push-in pin pegs, as the wall control sheet is quite thin to use the regular pegboard design. Once the pegs were ready, I moved on to designing holders and brackets for specific devices. The first one was a holder for Nikon batteries to keep them on the wall before or after charging. These were simple to design since the batteries have basic shapes. The same goes for an AA battery holder. For added strength, I designed small brackets for the bottom of the holders to reduce stress on the push pins. To improve assembly, I printed the parts separately and used a slide-in locking mechanism to keep them secure. The one holder I needed most was for the DJI remote. Since I'm still a beginner with 3D design, I started by modeling the controller's body and building the holder around it. After some testing, I realized the push-in pins wouldn't work for this design, so I created a locking system for better stability and applied that update to all my other designs. To avoid wasting time and material, I printed small cutouts of each part to test their fit. This step saved time and resources before printing the final versions. Another device I want to mount and charge on the wall is my electric screwdriver. This one was for Ronin RS3 battery that doesn't really need a separate holder or bracket. I could just place it on the shelf, but since I was already all in this, I designed it too. And this one is for Ronin RS3 Mini. Its battery is built into the handle, so the bracket will have to support the weight of the whole gimbal. Time to print cutouts of parts to check the final fitment. Nikon battery fits perfectly, I don't need to update here. As with the AA battery tray, I think I will make the cavity a little smaller so they hold there more tightly. Ronin RS3 fits perfectly, but I will have to add more material on the top so it holds the whole body better. Ronin RS3 battery fits right in and the little notch holds it in place. I think I will add a bit more material on top as well. For the DJI remote holder, I created a TPU insert for the remote. The PLA plastic might have been a bit harsh. This way it creates this kind of cushion that the remote sits in. You can see I didn't dry the TPU well enough, so I got some stringing. When I put the remote in the holder, I realized I could ditch the back of the holder as the remote wasn't even touching it. And these are the final versions. The locks slide right in and hold tight. I will do the same for all of the parts. Drone holder will have both locks and the bottom triangles to ease off forces on the locks. I also added the bottom hole for the USB charging cable, and of course I forgot to update the TPU insert model, so we'll have to reprint that. Okay, these were ready to go on the charging wall. But first I had to take the charging wall apart, as I also needed to add additional chargers and devices. Basically, the least adjustments were on the top tile, where I put just 2 new Nikon chargers. And most mods were on the bottom tile and on the inside of the charging wall, as I had to route many new cables. I began with the bottom tile. It still looks pretty empty under the tile, and that definitely changed as I added 5 new chargers and cables. First one is a LiPo battery charger that I use for my RC cars. The power cable is connected from the side, so I wasn't sure if I want to mount it horizontally or vertically, but then realized I can actually use 2-prong cable with 90-degree connector. Next up was the drill battery charger. I've always charged these around the house, so having it mounted on the wall is going to be a great improvement. However, the cable isn't detachable and the plug is way too large for the holes I plan to drill in the pegboard. I'll circle back to that later. This is a bracket for my battery-powered vacuum cleaner, which I use often around the office. I also wanted to add another outlet to the charging wall since it might come in handy. But of course, this one has an even larger plug to deal with. I shuffled things around for a while to make sure the layout was just right. I ended up moving the electric screwdriver along with the drone remote, tablet, and Ronin Mini to this same tile for better organization. For the drill charger, I thought about taking it apart to see if the cable could be detached. Unfortunately, it's soldered to the board. That left me with 2 options: either cut the cable and reconnect the plug later, or make a larger hole in the pegboard tile. Then came the vacuum cleaner plug. There wasn't enough clearance from the wall to fit it under the tiles, so I cut the plug off and replaced it with a smaller slide-in plug. However, as soon as I cut the cord, I quickly realized I messed up. The plug had an adapter built inside. Lesson learned: think twice before cutting cables. I ended up reassembling the charger and used a power cord extension to plug it in vertically. Once those issues were resolved, it was time to drill the holes for the cables. I marked the tile with blue tape where each cable would go through. Most of the holes were 20 millimeters, but for the larger plugs, I drilled 30 millimeter holes. The larger hole initially looked rough, which is why I wanted to avoid them. But after a bit of filing and bending, it fit perfectly under a rubber grommet for a clean finish. Both plugs, including the one from the drill charger, fit through perfectly. For most devices, I use silicone glue for mounting. It's strong yet easy to remove if needed. I got this monstrosity in Harbor Freight, only store that had this type of cord in stock locally. Its sole purpose is hosting the wide charger plug as its outlets are turned 90 degrees. Only thing I needed to adjust was to remove these rubber notches so it fit behind the tile. It's pretty heavy too, so I had to mount it to the wall really well. After upgrading the bottom tile, it's time to upgrade the middle tile and especially what under it. I only have 4 outlets here, so I had to get really creative to get all the new hardware plugged in. The USB charging hub still has a few slots available, but since I'll be adding the Mavic 3 charger, I'll need a dedicated 100-watt USB-C supply. There aren't many changes planned for this tile, just adding the Mavic charger and possibly the Ronin battery charger. Most of the updates will happen underneath it. The charging hub will sit on this shelf, but first I had to remove the old Mavic 2 charging hub, which was glued to the pegboard. You might remember I mentioned that I use clear silicone for mounting everything. It holds really well. Removing it just takes a bit of force, and the silicone is easy to peel off afterward. Once the Mavic charger was mounted, I added the RS3 battery bracket just below it. This required drilling 2 new holes into the pegboard tile, but that was a quick adjustment. The real upgrades were happening underneath the tile. I bought an extension cord on Amazon that was exactly what I needed. It has 2 separate power strips that are slim enough to fit under the tile, and they both run off a single outlet. Plus it has a flush plug, so there were no clearance issues. To set this up, I had to remove all the existing plugs and rearrange them. One small drawback with this extension cord is that the design can block adjacent outlets. However, if the plug next to it is slim, it fits just fine. After some trial and error, I had everything plugged in, effectively gaining another power strip. This is a new USB power hub designed to handle the Mavic charger and other devices. It delivers 300 watts combined with 100 watts on the top slot, exactly what I need for the Mavic battery charger. I decided to mount this hub on the wall using Velcro, stacking it neatly on the other hub. Finally, since I could no longer dedicate a smart outlet just for the LED strip inside the charging wall, I added a new smart plug. It was a tight fit, but in the end it cleared and fit perfectly under the tile. Once everything was mounted, I reassembled the wall, routed cables, and did some cable management. All these wires turned into a giant mess. Since everything will be hidden behind the tiles, it doesn't really matter for now. Still, if I ever upgrade this charging wall again and make version 3.0, I'd like to find a solution for custom cables and plugs to make it cleaner and more organized. With that done, it's time to load the bottom tile. The remote holder is working perfectly. It holds the remote securely in place. You'll notice I still haven't dried the TPU to print the updated insert that would let me plug in the USB. Yep, I got lazy on that one. The tablet will go here on the bottom tile, and with that it's time to upgrade the final section. Finally, I tackled the top tile, which only required minor updates, like adding 2 Nikon chargers. They'll sit somewhere around here, so let's glue them in place. And there we go. They're mounted. After confirming that everything works, it's time to secure the middle tile, tighten everything, and load the rest of the chargers, devices, and batteries. Finally, the charging wall version 2 is complete. Hopefully, I won't need to update it again anytime soon. If you're curious about how I built this charging station from the ground up, check out my previous video. I've added the link on screen and in the description below. And before you go, hit that subscribe button and smash that like button if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget to check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.